The evening started like any other. The city was bathed in the warm hues of the setting sun, casting long shadows that danced across the streets. The familiar sounds of the city winding down for the night filled the air, a symphony of distant car horns, muffled conversations, and the occasional bark of a dog. Rain lashed against the windows, a familiar rhythm against the backdrop of the city's low hum. The raindrops created intricate patterns on the glass, each one a tiny world of its own, reflecting the city lights in a kaleidoscope of colors. It was a scene I had witnessed countless times, yet it never failed to captivate me. I was alone, a half-eaten plate of pasta left forgotten on the coffee table as I flicked through channels, searching for something, anything, to cut through the monotony. The TV's glow was the only light in the room, casting eerie shadows on the walls. Each channel offered the same mindless drivel, a parade of reality shows, news reports, and infomercials. I caught my reflection in the darkened TV screen, just a fleeting glimpse before the channel changed. But it was enough. My face looked pale and drawn. The eyes staring back at me seemed almost like a stranger's. It was a moment of disquiet, a brief interruption in the otherwise mundane evening. My hair was a mess, sticking up at odd angles, but that wasn't what bothered me. It was the look in my eyes, a look that spoke of something deeper, something unsettling. It was as if my reflection was trying to tell me something I wasn't ready to hear. There was something off about my eyes. They seemed darker, more hollow, as if the life had been drained out of them. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, something beyond the usual fatigue and stress. I shrugged it off, attributing it to exhaustion. Work had been brutal, deadlines looming like vultures over a dying animal. The constant pressure, the never-ending stream of tasks, it was all taking its toll. I told myself that a good night's sleep would make everything better. I needed sleep, that's all. The kind of deep, dreamless sleep that would wash away the weariness and leave me feeling refreshed. But even as I thought this, I knew it wouldn't be that simple. The unease I felt was more than just physical tiredness. I switched off the TV and headed to the bathroom, the faint hum of the city barely noticeable over the incessant drumming of the rain. The apartment felt empty, almost hollow, as if the walls themselves were closing in on me. Each step echoed in the silence, a reminder of my solitude. As I passed the hallway mirror, I paused, a strange compulsion drawing me in. It was as if the mirror held some secret, some hidden truth that I needed to uncover. I stood there, staring at my reflection, trying to understand what it was that bothered me so much. This time, I looked, really looked. I examined every detail, every line and shadow. The face staring back at me was mine, but it felt different, almost alien. There was a depth to the eyes, a darkness that seemed to pull me in. It was a moment of clarity, a realization that something had changed, something fundamental. And in that moment, I knew that this ordinary evening was anything but. My reflection stared back, a perfect mimicry of my stance, my clothes. Every detail was identical, down to the smallest crease in my shirt, and the way my hair fell over my forehead. It was like looking into a photograph, a moment frozen in time. But the eyes, those weren't my eyes. They seemed to belong to someone else entirely, someone who was merely wearing my face as a mask. They were cold, calculating, devoid of any warmth or recognition. It was as if the soul behind them was a stranger, an intruder in my own body. Fear, primal and instinctive, gripped me. My heart began to race, each beat echoing in my ears like a drum. I could feel the blood draining from my face, leaving me cold and clammy. I blinked, expecting the anomaly to be gone, dismissed as a trick of the light or fatigue. But it wasn't. The eyes in the reflection remained, unwavering and intense. The eyes in the reflection remained fixed on me with an unnerving intensity. They seemed to bore into my very soul, searching for something hidden deep within. My breath caught in my throat, my heart pounding a frantic tattoo against my ribs. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me, my body reacting to the sheer terror of the moment. I tore my gaze away, a cold sweat prickling my skin. This was insane. It had to be a hallucination, a figment of my imagination brought on by stress or lack of sleep. It had to be stress, or maybe something I ate. Perhaps I was coming down with something, a fever that was playing tricks on my mind. That had to be it. There had to be a logical explanation for what I was seeing. I just needed to calm down and think rationally. There had to be a rational explanation. Maybe I was just overreacting, letting my imagination run wild. I walked away from the mirror, trying to convince myself it was nothing. But the image of those eyes, cold and alien, remained seared into my mind. No matter how hard I tried to shake it off, the memory of that gaze lingered, haunting me with its inexplicable wrongness. Sleep was an elusive dream that night. Every creak of the floorboards, every sigh of the wind against the window pane sent a fresh wave of terror through me. The face in the mirror, those eyes, played on repeat in my mind's eye, each replay more unsettling than the last. I tossed and turned, the sheets becoming increasingly twisted around my limbs. Finally, as dawn began to paint the sky with hues of gray and purple, I managed to drift off into a restless, dream-filled sleep. When I woke, the sun was streaming through the gaps in the curtains, casting long, dancing shadows across the room. For a moment, the events of the previous night seemed distant, unreal. But then, I remembered. The mirror. The eyes. Days turned into a blurry procession of work and restless nights. The city outside my window transformed from the bustling chaos of the day to the eerie stillness of the night. Each evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, a sense of unease settled over me. The once comforting hum of the city now felt like a distant, haunting melody, echoing the turmoil within me. The memory of that night, the chilling encounter with my reflection, haunted every waking moment. It was as if the mirror had captured a piece of my soul, a fragment of my sanity, and twisted it into something unrecognizable. Every time I closed my eyes, I could see that distorted image staring back at me, mocking my fear. I tried to avoid mirrors, to pretend it had never happened. I draped cloths over them, turned them to face the walls, anything to escape that haunting reflection. But no matter what I did, I could feel its presence, lurking just out of sight, waiting for the moment I would let my guard down. But it was always there, lurking in the back of my mind, a constant gnawing fear that I couldn't shake off. It was like a shadow, always following me, always just a step behind. I could feel it in the quiet moments, in the stillness of the night, a whisper in the darkness that refused to be silenced. Strange things began to happen. Objects would move on their own, shifting positions when I wasn't looking. It started small, a pen rolling off the table, a picture frame tilting slightly. But soon, it escalated. Objects would move slightly, a glass inexplicably shifting position on the countertop, sliding across the surface as if pushed by an invisible hand. I would find it in different places, never where I had left it. A book falling from a seemingly stable stack, crashing to the floor with a loud thud that echoed through the empty room. Each incident chipped away at my sense of reality, leaving me questioning what was real and what was imagined. Whispers seemed to emanate from empty rooms, barely audible murmurs that vanished as soon as I strained to hear. It was as if the walls themselves were alive, breathing secrets into the air, taunting me with their elusive presence. I would stand in the middle of a room, straining to catch a word, a phrase, anything that would make sense of the madness. But the whispers would fade, leaving only silence and the pounding of my own heart. I began to doubt my own sanity. Was I going crazy? The line between reality and illusion blurred, and I found myself questioning everything I saw, everything I heard. The fear, a constant companion now, was slowly morphing into something darker, more insidious paranoia. Was this some kind of mental breakdown? I sought answers but found only more questions. Therapy sessions became a lifeline, a desperate attempt to cling to some semblance of normalcy. But even there, the shadows followed me, whispering their dark secrets. The fear, a constant companion now, was slowly morphing into something darker, more insidious. Paranoia. I would check my surroundings constantly, convinced that something or someone was watching me. Every creak, every rustle, sent my heart racing. I was trapped in a nightmare, living in a world where reality itself seemed to be unraveling. The walls closed in, the shadows grew longer, and I was left to wonder if I would ever escape the whispers in the stillness. Section 5. The Growing Dread. One evening, as I was getting ready for bed, I caught my reflection in the bathroom mirror again. This time, it wasn't just the eyes. The entire face was different, subtly but undeniably altered. The features were the same, yet rearranged, twisted into a grotesque parody of my own. I stumbled back, my heart threatening to burst out of my chest. The reflection moved, its lips curling into a chilling, mirthless smile. Terror, raw and consuming, washed over me. This wasn't just my imagination, this was real and it was getting worse. I couldn't ignore it any longer. I had to confront it, to understand what it was, what it wanted. That night, I stood before the hallway mirror, my heart pounding so hard I could hear the blood rushing in my ears. I stared at the reflection, at the twisted, mocking version of myself that looked back with cold, calculating eyes. "What do you want?" I whispered, my voice trembling. The reflection's lips moved, forming words I couldn't hear. "Speak louder," I demanded, my voice gaining a measure of strength. "Tell me what you want." The reflection's head tilted to one side, a grotesque mimicry of curiosity. Then, slowly, it opened its mouth, and a voice, raspy and chilling, slithered out from the mirror. "You," it rasped, the sound like nails scraping against a chalkboard. "I want you." Panic surged through me, threatening to overwhelm me. I stumbled back, away from the mirror, away from the thing that wore my face. This was madness, pure and simple. I turned and ran, fleeing from the room, from the house, from the chilling truth that was reflected back at me. I ran until my lungs burned and my legs screamed for mercy. I didn't know where I was going, only that I had to get away to escape the nightmare that had become my reality. I ended up in a park, collapsing onto a bench, gasping for breath. The first rays of dawn were painting the sky with streaks of pink and orange, but the beauty of the sunrise did little to ease the terror that gripped me. I was trapped, caught in a waking nightmare with no escape. The thing in the mirror, the thing that was both me and not me, had claimed a part of my life, of my sanity. Days blurred into weeks. I tried to tell people, friends, colleagues, even strangers on the street. But the words sounded crazy even to my own ears. They looked at me with pity, with concern, but never with understanding. I was alone in my terror, alone with the chilling knowledge that something was terribly, terribly wrong. The line between reality and nightmare had become blurred, and I was no longer sure which side I was on. One night I found myself drawn back to the mirror. Perhaps it was a morbid curiosity or a desperate hope for answers. Whatever the reason, I stood before it, staring at the reflection that was both familiar and terrifyingly alien. "Why?" I whispered, my voice hoarse with fear and exhaustion. "Why me?" The reflection smiled, a slow, predatory stretching of lips. "Because," it hissed, its voice a chilling echo of my own, "we are one." And in that moment, staring into the depths of those cold, calculating eyes, I saw a glimmer of recognition, a terrifying truth that shattered the last vestiges of my sanity. The reflection wasn't a separate entity, it was me. Or rather, it was a part of me, a dark and twisted reflection of my own soul given form.